All right, everybody, good morning. Welcome, thank you for joining us for today's January 15th meeting of the SBCAG Board. For the record, my name is Bob Nelson. I am the chair of the SBCAG for 2026. Madam Clerk, please facilitate the roll call.
Director Rouse?
Here.
Director Perotti?
Here.
Director Patino?
Here.
Director Mosby?
Here.
Director Lee?
Here.
Director Lavanino?
Here.
Director Julian?
Here.
Director Hartman?
Here.
Director Clark?
Here.
Director Capps?
Here.
Director Brown?
Here.
Vice Chair Silva?
Here.
And Chair Nelson.
Here. Will you all please stand and join me to pledge allegiance to the flag? Ready? Begin. Okay, right to public comment. This is a public comment period for items not on today's agenda. Speakers have up to 3 minutes each with a total of 15 minutes allotted for public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment here today?
Yes, there are 2 request to speak forms, and for any members of the public on the Zoom webinar, if you wish to speak, would you please use the raise hand feature, and I will call upon you. Our first speaker is Scott Wentz. Cars are basic.
Welcome, Mr. Wentz. Happy New Year.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Scott Wentz representing Cars for Basic. Again, Happy New Year to all of you. I'm here to address the issue of Caltrans November comment about 154 and 246. Cars are Basic really objected to this. That was a project that was ill-advised, has hurt people, had multiple damage, just had another rollover accident there with an ejection. This is a roundabout that has to be taken out because Caltrans played political games out of Sacramento. We have to have a roundabout. We gave Caltrans an alternative that would have cost them $650,000. It would have taken away the visual issue that was at that intersection, and it would have worked fine. This has to stop. The city of Lompoc and the city of Solvang, using their sphere of influence, said to Caltrans, we do not want this roundabout here. You have more traffic, more commercial traffic on this road now. Whenever Gaviota gets cut off, boom, guess what? They come over 154. You have the expansion of the casino. You have the expansion of residents in the area. This cannot continue. And wait until the Chumash Reservation starts doing its Camp Ford. That is going to really add a lot of there. It was badly designed. It's badly run. Caltrans just admitted in November that they were going to fix the problem by doing more striping and putting lighting on there. You can't fix bad design. You can't fix what causes accidents. And this goes to the same thing that we have to say about La Purisma. You know, you already killed one firefighter over there under difficult circumstances. The people of the valley did not want this. Let me repeat that again for anybody listening. The people of the valley did not want that roundabout. That roundabout has proven to be an absolute disaster. You need to use your authority and press on the state of California to get that damn thing out of there, and we'll give you our design. Because CEQA says if you have an alternative design that meets 90% of the issue, the government has to do that. Guess what? They played the 4-finger discount. That's what they told CAB. And that's what's causing the accidents in the valley. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wentz.
Our next speaker is Karen Hamelstein.
Hello, county leaders. Karen Howenstein from North County. I am born and raised in Lompoc, and I live there now. I am here as a matter of public record, placing you on notice and informing you. In 2023, inside the Lompoc Police Department, we had a suspicious death that has not yet been fully investigated. There's been an official complaint made to the police officer standards and training. You need to be aware of that and follow it through to its completion. Liliana Cecilia Zuniga. She was an abused woman who needs to be remembered by this county more than any other people who are just passing through.
Karen, 1 second. Madam Clerk, will you pause public comment for a moment? Karen, public comment when it comes to SBCAG needs to be on issues that are under our jurisdiction.
Public safety in our county.
We're transportation, multi-jurisdictional agency for transportation.
Oh, okay.
Predominantly. So let's try to get our comments to something that's under the jurisdiction of this organization. I mean, what you had would have been perfect.
So that would be, okay,
for the-
I'm just placing that on record.
Yeah, okay.
Because you guys are the leaders of our county.
Understood, but I want to focus
It's general public comment. Okay,
it
so
is.
then the,
But under the jurisdiction of this body.
okay, so the bridges across the Santa Ynez River
That's
that were
great.
promised to
Okay,
Lompoc.
okay.
To connect
Go ahead and start public comment again.
246 to
Go ahead, Karen.
Central.
Thank you.
That would be for this place?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for also letting me use the public comment to lodge my complaints and make sure they're followed up on publicly.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
If there are any other members of the public on the Zoom webinar who wish to speak, would you please use the raise hand feature and I will call upon you. There are no speakers.
All right, well, that concludes public comment. That brings us to our consent calendar. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the consent calendar?
There are no changes to the consent calendar, and there are no announcements for the consent calendar.
All right. Are there any items on the consent calendar that members or directors would like to pull? I know that Director Hartman has pulled G. Anything else? Not seen up here in Santa Barbara. In Santa Maria, are there any items that you guys wish to pull?
I'd like to pull A.
Okay. So it would be the approval of the minutes. So for Patino,
And that's just to vote to abstain from them. That's not a discussion.
thank you, Director Patino. We'll go ahead and make sure we have a separate vote on that. Madam Clerk, is there any members of the public pulling any items on the consent calendar?
Are there any members of the public on the Zoom webinar who wish to speak? If so, please use the raise hand feature and I will call upon you. There are no requests to speak.
There is one in North County.
That is for item 166.
Which item is that?
That is later on in the agenda.
Okay, understand. Thank you. Before I move to ask for a motion, Supervisor Hartman, are you looking potentially for a separate vote on G, or just want to pull it to discuss that? Okay. So let's go ahead and get a motion, at least on the minutes. So if I can get a motion on item A, which is the approval of the minutes from last meeting.
Motion to approve item A.
Okay, motion from Silva, a second from Perotti. Madam Clerk, we could please do a roll call.
Director Rouse?
Aye.
Director Perotti?
Aye.
Director Patino?
Abstain.
Director Mosby?
Aye.
Director Lee?
Aye.
Director Lavanino? Aye. Director Julian?
Aye.
Director Hartman? Aye. Director Clark? Aye. Director Capps? Aye. Director Brown?
Aye.
Vice Chair Silva?
Aye.
And Chair Nelson.
Aye. I assume the motion passes. All right, let's go ahead and, before I make a motion for the balance, let's go ahead and read G into the record, the item that's been pulled by Supervisor Hartman. If it's, everything's fine with that, then we'll just take a motion for the balance of the agenda after that.
Santa Ynez Valley River Trail Contractor Agreement to approve and authorize the executive director to execute an agreement with SOMAS similar to the attached and based upon review and concurrence by legal counsel for planning and engineering work associated with the Santa Ynez River Trail Project in an amount not to exceed of $796,638 with a period of performance extending between execution of the agreement and December 31st, 2028, to authorize the executive director to approve immaterial amendments to the agreement.
All right, Director Hartman.
Thank you. So I have several questions.
The first has to do with timing. I see that this is expected to be done in 2 years, and I just wondered how that fits with the ATP grant state. We're trying to get this done to fit into the cycle for ATP, and I think then we got to wait, what, another 2 years, or it just.
Well, Director Hartman, the ATP cycle, and Sarkis, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is accepting applications this summer for the next cycle, and then it's every 2 years. So 2 years from this coming summer would be the next cycle, which probably would be the one that would be aiming for this project.
Okay, so that fits. And then, first of all, I'm just really excited to see this. Let me. The next question has to do with the federal grant and how that would fit with this contract.
Very good question, Director Hartman. The federal grant was awarded to the St. Inez Band Chumash Indians in the amount of $1.4 million, and it has a required match, which is this project. The match is what we're doing now. So we have been coordinating with the tribe. The tribe has been approached by the Federal Highway Administration, the grantor, and the current state is we've worked, Fred Luna and I, to work on the agreement between the tribe and the FHWA. That goes back to the FHWA, and once it's agreed upon, then the funds, that agreement will run up the chain at FHWA for execution on their side. And assuming it does become executed, I think there's no guarantee, but right now it looks likely, then in all likelihood, SBCAG will take on the work for that, just as we did, because part of today's action is to approve an agreement with the contractor, but part of the funding behind that was awarded to the tribe. And it was probably about 4 months ago we came and had an agreement between SBCAG and the tribe for SBCAG to take on management of that grant, and that's what we expect to happen for this one as well. So when we advertise the work, there are a variety of optional tasks included in the agreement, which are the ones that would be filled in with the federal grant.
So does it seem like this contractor would take it on, or we're not sure yet?
That's a good question, Supervisor Hartman or Director Hartman. Assuming we can negotiate in good faith with the contractor and come to an agreement on price. So it's part of today's agreement says that the contractor would have to honor the same hourly rates that they're doing for the work that hopefully gets approved today. So if we can come to an agreement, we can amend it into the contract. Otherwise, we'd go back out to bid for those optional tasks.
So we may just fold it in and not have to go out again through the process if they can. And once again, if what?
There's a lot of moving pieces with this. One of them is that grant award is federal, and all the other money that we've had to this point is either state or local. And there's different contracting requirements. So we would have to ensure that the FHWA is allowing us to go this route. Otherwise, we'd have to go out to bid to.
I see. Okay, thank you. And my final question, as I look to the environmental piece in the contract, it doesn't make any mention of the Recreation Master Plan, EIR, which was designed to be programmatic and to tier off. So how will that work?
Another great question, Director Hartman. For the environmental, so the agreement that's being approved today as part of Work Package 1 is 100% of the environmental work within the city of Buellton. So at the conclusion of this project, the trail will be construction ready for City of Buellton. Outside of the city, the environmental work is an optional task. And we're paying attention to the county's process of the Recreation Master Plan. And when that is approved, then we could tier off of it. We can't tier off of it in anticipation of it being approved. But that is certainly something that we are keeping our eyes on as this goes forward.
It's coming soon.
That's what I
thank
keep
you,
hearing.
and thank you for, and then the person for SBCAG who is the contact for this for this work isn't you or Fred. Is that typical?
No, it's Tom Vo, who's sitting right back here. Tom works in planning division under me.
Okay.
I'll be involved, Fred will be involved. Because this is a mix of planning and engineering, it's, perhaps I can't be a good advisor on the engineering aspect, and Fred can't be a good advisor on the planning aspect. So it's a team. And Tom's going to keep us organized and pointing in the right direction.
Okay, well, again, I'm absolutely delighted to see this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Director Patino. Any other questions from board members? Any public comment on item G?
Are there any members of the public on the Zoom webinar who wish to speak on item G? Please use the raise hand feature and I will call upon you. There are no paper requests to speak forms and there are no attendees who wish to speak.
Okay. Director Hartman, no reason for a different vote on that. So with that, I could get a motion for the balance of the agenda, which would be items 4B through 4I. Moved by Brown. I need a second.
Second?
Second from Hartman. Can we please do a roll call vote?
Director Rouse?
Aye.
Director Perotti?
Aye.
Director Patino?
Aye.
Director Mosby?
Aye.
Director Lee?
Aye.
Director Lavanino? Aye. Director Julian?
Aye.
Director Hartman?
Aye.
Director Clark?
Aye.
Director Capps? Aye. Director Brown?
Aye.
Vice Chair Silva?
Aye.
And Chair Nelson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you. We can go ahead and move on to the discussion items. Item 5A, Madam Clerk, will you please read that item into the record?
Item 5A, SBCAG 2026 Committee Appointments, Recommended Actions. 1, appoint one delegate and alternate to the California Association of Councils of Governments. 2, appoint one delegate and alternate to the Los Angeles, San Diego, San Luis Obispo Rail Corridor Agency. 3, appoint one delegate and alternate to the Coast Rail Coordinating Council. 4, appoint one member and one alternate to the CalVans Board of Directors. 5, appoint members to the Highway 154 Safety Committee. 6, appoint members to the SBCAG Executive Committee, Chair, Vice Chair, Immediate Past Chair, and Chairs of North County and South Coast Subregional. 7, appoint an SBCAG Board Delegate to participate in the Central Coast Coalition Sacramento Legislative Advocacy Day scheduled for March 17th and 18th, 2026. 8, appoint the SBCAG Chair, Vice Chair, and Immediate Past Chair to serve as the Washington, D.C. Legislative Delegation representing SBCAG's interest in Washington, D.C. the week of March 23rd, 2026.
All right. Thank you. So let's go. Director Kern.
Liana went through the list of appointments. This is your annual chance to appoint yourself or others to committees that meet throughout the year. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the appointments or the committees, if you have any, but otherwise, normally we just go through the committees and ask for volunteers.
Okay, great. Thank you, Director Kern. And typically, a lot of these committees, there's a bit of value in having some background in it. So those that are already in it are often, favored by the board because they've got some of that experience there. Although this is also the time for somebody that says, hey, that's something I would be interested in the future. So it's also good for us to know that this is our opportunity to kind of have those conversations. We'll go ahead and start off with CalCog. My understanding right now, I'm the regular member and Director Patino is the alternate there. This year, I have quite a bit of work on my calendar already on chairing this and other things throughout the state. I've talked to Director Silva about potentially being the regular member, and I think he's interested in that. I don't know if Director Patino would like to stay on as alternate for that. I'm happy to move to alternate position if she doesn't want that, but I'd be happy to let her stay there as well.
Director Nelson, I would like to be the member on that, being as I've been the alternate.
Okay. So,
And maybe Director Silva would take the alternate.
That works for me.
that sounds great. So, any other, not seeing anybody jump up and down here. Thank you, Director Patino, for jumping up on that down in Santa Maria. And again, if any of these items that you're interested in Santa Maria, please don't hesitate to speak up. The next item here is LoSan, I believe we got here. And currently we have, I believe, Director Perotti and Director Lee as the regular and alternate members. Are you guys both?
I'd like to stay on LoSan.
I'm happy as alternate.
Okay, great. Seeing no objection, we'll keep moving on to the CRCC, which is the Coast Rail Coordinating Council. Currently, we have Director Rouse, and then as the regular member, and Director Brown as the alternate.
I'm fine with status quo.
Okay, we got some thumbs up here. Everybody good down there? Looks like it. Moving on to the California Van Pool Authority, Cal Vans. Currently, I'm a regular appointed member, and Director Julian is the alternate. It's a preference for me to stay on that. I am on the executive committee. I have stepped away from being the vice chair, which I had been for the last couple of years, but we're going through some major changes of management. Happy to pass it on in the next year or two if somebody's interested, but I think I need to be on that for the purposes of the continuity with no objections. And Director Julian, are you okay staying on as the alternate?
I am, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving along to the State Highway 154 Safety Committee. I think we have 5 directors on that at this point. Is that correct? Just for the record, that is Director Hartman, Director Capps, Director Perotti, Director Silva, and Director Brown. So that's the kind of those areas, the 2nd and 3rd district of the supervisors and the 3 cities that are kind of impacted there as well. Are you guys all happy staying on that? Okay, so the direction of the board currently is to, and the motion we'll make is to keep that the same, status quo. The SBCAG Executive Committee, which is traditionally the chair and the vice chair, and
Chair, vice chair, former past chair, and the chairs of the subregionals, so five members.
okay. Any objections there? Yeah, do we have the subregionals already voted on?
Yes, yes.
So who are the chairs of the
It was Director
subregionals?
Julian and Director Lee.
Okay. Past chair is Rouse. Yeah, so it'll be Rouse, Nelson, Silva, Julian, and Lee for the executive committee. All right, Central Coast Coalition State Legislative Advocacy Day. Who wants to go to Sacramento? So how many numbers do we send to this?
We normally take one, at least one.
Okay. I will be, I think, unavailable at that time, so I'm not able to do that, or else I would volunteer. But is there anybody that's interested in potentially going to state Legislative Advocacy Day? March.
Yeah, but I might be unavailable as well.
Okay. Can we, part of the motion, make that a chairman's, can I appoint somebody after, at a later date? If you guys
Sure.
would make that a part of the motion, is I will appoint somebody to go to that. And once you guys check your schedules, you guys let me know and I'll find somebody. And we can take more than one if necessary,
Yes,
if
yes.
more than one is interested. Okay. Thank you, Director Kern. Moving on to the Washington DC Legislative Delegation. Typically, again, this is the former past chair, the current chair, and the vice chair, which would traditionally be Rouse, Nelson, and Silva. Everybody's good with that? Okay. Madam Clerk, did you catch all that? Okay. Any discussions from anybody else that would like to, this is kind of speak now, forever hold your peace in Santa Maria? Any other thoughts? Okay.
None up here.
All right. Thank you, Director Patino. Madam Clerk, is there any public comment?
If there are any members of the public on the Zoom webinar who wish to speak, would you please use the raise hand feature and I will call upon you. There are no paper request to speak forms, and there are no attendees who wish to speak.
Okay, Madam Clerk, is it clear from the discussion up here, if somebody says a motion to appoint the committees as discussed by the board, that be
Yes.
good enough for you on the motion, or?
Do we need to rephrase the appointees and delegates into the record? Okay,
Okay.
we're good. If we can-
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion of a slate of appointees based on the discussion we had up here just now. I got a.
Move to approve.
Okay, motion from Brown.
Second.
Second from Silva. All right, can we go ahead and do a roll call vote, please?
Director Rouse? Director Perotti?
Aye.
Director Patino?
Aye.
Director Mosby?
Aye.
Director Lee?
Aye.
Director Lavanino? Director Julian?
Aye.
Director Hartman?
Aye.
Director Clark?
Aye.
Director Capps? Director Brown?
Aye.
Vice Chair Silva?
Aye.
And Chair Nelson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, just for a moment of agenda management, is our presenter for 5B here? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on to item 5B. Madam Clerk, will you please read that item into the record?
Final State Route 166 Comprehensive Corridor Study. Recommended actions: 1, approve the Final State Route 166 Comprehensive Corridor Study, and 2, direct staff to file a notice of exemption with the Santa Barbara County Clerk pursuant to Section 15738B2 of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA guidelines.
All right, I guess staff will have a presentation for us.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and Directors, and Happy New Year. I'm Maya Kulkarni from SBCAG Programming, and today we will be presenting the final, 166 corridor study. I will be using this, I think. Okay. SBCAG has been working with Caltrans, City of Santa Maria, City of Guadalupe, and the county to develop this study with our consultant DKS and SOMIS. As a reminder, the study focuses on State Route 166 between City of Guadalupe and City of Santa Maria, as well as the parallel facilities.
Excuse me, Chair Nelson, could you have her speak up a little bit, please?
Yes, Director.
Yes. Is this okay if I bring it closer to me? Project.
There is a little button on your right to raise the platform.
Oh, this actual platform. Got it. Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay, does this help?
Yeah, do a test.
All right, I just have to project. So I'll just go over this part real quick. As a reminder, the study focuses on State Route 166 from Guadalupe to Santa Maria, and it includes the parallel facilities as well. Nope. Okay. The goal of the study is to develop a list of improvements to address the issues along the corridor. Examples of those issues include safety, congestion, goods movement, and multimodal connections. The study also helps us prepare for future funding and sets us up for future grants, competitive grants. And it also helps us identify any projects that we may want to include in our Measure A renewal. So I'm going to pass it off to Jim Dankowicz from DKS, who is helping us with the study.
Okay. Mr. Chair, members of the board, again, Jim Dankowicz. I'm a principal at DKS Associates. We are also joined by SOMIS Engineering for civil support to help support SBCAG in this study. I'll quickly go through the aspects of the study, the existing conditions analysis, our community engagement efforts, the performance assessment, and then quickly go through the CIP improvements that some of you have already seen, and wrap up with implementation. So for existing conditions, we took a pretty deep dive. We looked at the socioeconomic characteristics of the area, so City of Guadalupe, Santa Maria Orchid area, but also the socioeconomic characteristics of the users that are on 166 on a daily basis. We did that through cell data, big data. We looked at goods movement. We looked at operations and in terms of delay and travel time reliability, which is kind of a new metric that is of key interest. Obviously, we looked at safety, looking at the collision history and where the hot spots tend to be. And as part of that, we also performed a roadway or a road safety audit, which is a method prescribed by Federal Highway Administration, which actually took our team out there, walked the corridor, took lots of observations, and that included staff from Guadalupe, Santa Maria, Caltrans, SBCAG, and the consultant team. We looked at multimodal access in terms of ped, bike, and transit, and then looked at how stressful it is for those active transportation users within the corridor. As you might imagine, it's very stressful, which keeps people from wanting to bike or walk the corridor. And then finally, we used a series of Caltrans website tools to look at equity and vulnerable network as it relates to extreme weather events. So in terms of our community engagement, we used all our resources to make sure we did a good job at this. We had a project website. We had an interactive web-based tool that allowed folks in the comfort of their own home to provide public input. We did a community survey, both online and in person, and a lot of collateral materials to make sure folks were aware of that the study was going on. We also did about 5 pop-ups where we don't ask people to come to us, we go to where they are. I'm happy to say we exceeded our goals in terms of the number of community surveys that were performed by the public. We also, the lion's share, over 70% were done by Hispanic speakers. And we also shout out to the county who allowed us to use promotores, which are folks who speak Mexicatan, who that community does not have a written language. So the only way you can get their input is verbally. So that was a really nice resource. And we did very well with our community engagement and exceeded our community engagement goals. I think we got close to 500 surveys filled out. And then in addition to that, we did go and hold 2 public workshops, one in Guadalupe, one in Santa Maria, where we asked folks to come and provide input on the improvement concepts that were under consideration. And then last but not least, we had meetings with our Stakeholder Advisory Committee, with the Sub-Regional Planning Committee of SBCAG, as well as TTAC. Okay, the performance assessment, we did look at roughly 11 types of improvements. In the world we live in terms of state and federal grants, it's all performance-based. So we're looking at not only the costs of the improvements, but also the monetized benefits of the improvements. And from that, you can get a benefit cost assessment. It's not the only metric, but it's a key metric that drives a lot of funding decisions made by the California Transportation Commission and the federal highways. So we looked at the benefits as it relates to collision reduction, delay reduction, travel time reliability improvement, fuel use, on-road mobile source emissions, so on and so forth. So we tried not to leave any rock unturned in terms of monetizing benefits. We didn't want to leave any on the ground or off the table, but there are some you can't capture all. And one that the Growers and Shippers Association pointed out that we could not beyond the scope of our study, but we do recognize it, is the cost of agriculture for transporting perishable goods. Every hour between cut and in the Coolidge storage is a day of shelf life that's lost, and that has economic implications, of course. So we do talk about it, but we didn't monetize that, which basically means that our benefit cost ratio, which was very good, 2.66, is probably underestimated because we didn't take that into account. But again, freight movement is improved. Gross regional product in the region adds about $12 million if the construction of these improvements takes place, and then that will create jobs as well. So a lot of economic benefit. And then, benefit cost is not the only thing, so we did look at policy consistency, not only the local agency general plan policies, that's the City of Guadalupe and the City of Santa Maria and the county, and as well as the regional policies of SBCAG and their RTP, but also Caltrans, of course. It's their facility, and so we looked at their climate change initiatives and their policies to see how congruent each of the projects were. And that's what this matrix shows. And in terms of, we did have a public draft. It was released in October. We did receive comments from Caltrans, SBCAG, the North County Sub-Regional Planning Committee, as well as the Stakeholder Advisory Committee. And just real quick, I'll just summarize those comments for you. So for SBCAG and Caltrans, the typical editorial suggestions, but in better resolution, list of acronyms, which is now part of the draft, and then some clarifications on the performance assessment for Caltrans. The North County Sub-Regional Committee, they desire to see a 4-lane widening of 166 as part of a aspirational list of projects that are longer term. The planning horizon for the study is roughly 20 to 25 years, so short term, if you will, when it comes to transportation improvements. But the longer term are equally as important because, of course, Measure A will sunset in 2040, and if there's a renewal effort, there's a desire to have new regional improvements that can be made part of that referendum. They also suggested that the Bonita School Road, or Bonita School itself, should be relocated. We agreed with that, as well as the stakeholder, the Stakeholder Advisory Committee strongly agreed with that as well. So that was an interesting input. And then just one good question was there any regional differences in the public input? In other words, do residents of City of Guadalupe have different opinions of what they'd like to see in terms of improvements and other aspects versus Santa Maria and Orchid? So we did go back and take a look at that. For the most part, they were very congruent, but there was some differences. City of Santa Maria, Orchid were more pro for more enforcement in the corridor. They were also more advocating active transportation improvements versus the Guadalupe side, which they advocated more transit, which was interesting. And people in Guadalupe use 166 a lot more than folks in Santa Maria. So that was pretty clear from separating those two. So that's now documented in the report. And then the advisory committee, I've already mentioned some of this. They wanted to see more operational improvements in lighting on Bedaravian Black Road, as well as Black and Stoll, which we incorporated. Also, again, the Bonita School location is problematic. And the reason that is that it's in the middle of the ag fields, and there's a lot of wind-blown particulates. Those particulates typically have pesticides, herbicides, and you have a sensitive receptive group with young children right in the middle of all that. So all the students come from Santa Maria. That's where they live. So it makes sense to possibly examine a relocation of that school. And then, again, recognition that the benefit cost does not reflect perishable goods. And so this is a matrix of how our stakeholder advisory committee scored each of the improvements, and I'll walk through those pretty well, but for the most part, there was a lot of support. They had the option of showing support, being neutral or indifferent to the improvement, or did not support, and then support with a condition. And as you can see, there was only 2 improvements that they could not support, or a few of them did not support. It was 50-50. And that was the roundabout alternatives to some of the improvements. They preferred signalized intersections, and that's fine. We provide both options. And then the Santa Maria River Levee Trail, about half the group were not very supportive of that improvement being included as part of the package. And then for the long-term improvement, a couple, as a condition of support, wanted to see the Class 1 trail decoupled from the 4-lane widening. We included them as a couplet. So that would be a Class 1 trail from connecting Santa Maria to Guadalupe, bidirectional, and that would be on the south side of the facility, and then the widening of 166, which is very costly, and the Sub-Regional Planning Committee asked for a cost of that. Based on construction year of 2040, it's about $320 million. So not cheap. So real quick, the improvement concepts, this is an overall map. We do reflect in the purple bubbles, that's the existing GAPS CAP-M project that is currently moving forward with planned completion by 2028, 29. That includes a couple of signalized intersections in Guadalupe, as well as some bike facility improvements within the city of Santa Maria. The green bubbles are those that were identified as part of this study. And I'll walk through those very quickly. So that's a rendition of the GAPS CAP-M project, which we did not reflect in the benefit cost, but we wanted to include because we're leveraging those improvements as part of this study. But as far as ours, a signalization of the CMIS 166 intersection with additional channelization for operational and safety improvements. Some formalizing of the access to Bonita School Road from 166, again for safety and operational benefits, as well as formalizing the parking and some ingress, egress characteristics going into the school itself. Ray Road in Mainline, this is basically formalizing that stop controlled at the northbound to provide an extended right and left turn storage, because right now it queues pretty significantly, causing a lot of delay. And that's also a safety improvement for improved sight distance for those turning left and right. Okay, this is for Hanson, and this is extending. This is only in the westbound direction. Right now, the lane drop occurs roughly around Hanson. But there's a lot of businesses on that north side with driveways that causes a lot of friction, turning movements that are creating safety issues. So the idea here is that we extend that lane drop beyond Hanson and beyond where those driveways are. So it's a much smoother transition from 2 to 1 lane. And then we also identified paved driveway aprons. And this is a safety because it adds traction to ingress and egress vehicles coming out of those driveways and those fields, but also it cuts down on dust and green train road dust, so dust abatement strategy. And this was very popular among the stakeholder advisory group. And also the need for lighting. So we heard this loud and clear from the public. Lighting is an issue, particularly around key intersections. So we identified additional lighting for various key locations within the corridor and also on Betaravia Road. We also are advocating the purchase of 15 additional vans from Calvan to provide exclusive service for ag workers. We worked closely with Calvans to identify what the potential demand was for these added vehicles, and there is a demand there. Calvans is already doing a lot of work in this corridor, but they recognize that it's not enough and they can do more. So we're advocating additional 15 Calvans, and then also for Santa Maria Regional Transit, which has now assumed control of the Guadalupe Flyer service between Guadalupe and Santa Maria, to reduce those headways from 60 minutes to 30 minutes. That's going to require a purchase of an additional 35-foot bus. And so transit service will be much more, I think, convenient, particularly for those residents in Guadalupe who rely on transit to go to Santa Maria and back. Okay, so this is the Surface Transportation Assistance Act, STAA. This is for truck circulation. And I just want to make it clear from the beginning, the trucks are already out there. So any of these improvements are not allowing trucks where they currently aren't operating. That is a misconception. It's just trying to formalize the network for not only the truckers, but also for CHP, who must enforce the STA regulations, and also for the city of Santa Maria, who's trying to preclude the number of heavy-duty trucks, 5-axle plus trucks, that have to traverse through their downtown on 166. So, and we did find that not only are the trucks there, but they're growing in numbers, and they're growing faster than the traffic overall is growing. So the mix of heavy-duty trucks is increasing in this region. So we've identified STA signage improvements, as well as some other safety improvements, but to formalize the network so truckers know where to go and where they should be. And we identified a number of alternative networks. There's roughly 6 that are shown in the report. I would say that the city of Santa Maria is advocating just bringing the STAA signage, allowing trucks to be on 166 up to Blosser Road, rather than to 135. And there's various alternatives. And then the advisory committee really advocated including Stoll Road as part of the STA network as well. And okay, so this intersection improvements at Betaravia and Mahoney, that's a very funky intersection today. It's a picture of it in the top right. But this is to make it more of a traditional intersection. This will facilitate goods movement, trucks, as well as safety for vehicular traffic. So this is the signalized version of the improvement, and we also included a roundabout version. Folks have mixed feelings about roundabouts, and we heard that loud and clear from the advisory group, as well as some others in the public. but those are options. And then last but not least, the US 101 Betaravia interchange improvement. So this is changing the circulation of the northbound ramps, but also providing Class 1 bike and pedestrian facilities, as well as intersection improvements at Nicholson as well. And this is primarily driven by the need to make sure Betaravia is becoming a better STA route. There's already a lot of trucks using it, so this will help formalize that. But also the city of Santa Maria, as part of their general plan update, are now targeting growth on the east side of 101. And so you'll have residential and then all the shopping opportunities on the west side of Betaravia. So you want to make that more accessible to ped and bikes as well as to vehicles. And then the Santa Maria River Levee Trail, and that's included. This is a very popular improvement. I would say folks are concerned about undue detour. Does it really provide that parallel connection between Santa Maria and Guadalupe? We feel it does, but our analysis did take into consideration the buffer distance that people would actually use this facility to make those connections. But make no mistake, we recognize that having a bike and ped facility along the 166 is much more efficient, but again, it's much more costly. This improvement's moving along, it's already in its environmental phase, and so we're including it as part of our package. And then here's the widening, there you go, you can see the bike path there. So the profile cross-section in the middle, that's what exists today. And you can see the extent of what would be required in terms of right-of-way to make it a 4-lane facility. Caltrans will need a center median to a divider for this, for safety. Folks felt from the Stakeholder Advisory Committee, they questioned the need for that, but I can guarantee you Caltrans is going to want that. And then the Class 1 bi-directional trail south side of the State Route 166. And again, it comes at a hefty price. So this is really only possible, I think, as part of a Measure A renewal package. And then in terms of our implementation, we looked at all the various funding sources. Again, as Maya said, we're targeting, at least for the package that were identified for these next 20 years, state and federal grant funding to try to get these projects implemented. And then we phased the improvements from short-term, midterm, and then that longer-term 20-plus years, and that's where you see the 4-lane widening, as well as the Class 1 trail on 166. So with that, I'll open up to questions.
All right, questions among directors. I see Director Lee, you have a question?
I do. So the levee trail that you spoke about, do you reach out to local farmers impacted by that construction? Or was there any feedback or any negative impacts to them?
Director Lee, the Levee Trail project is a county project. We've included it because it's moving forward, it's complementary, it's related to our study, so it's the county that is advancing the project. However, just on our Stakeholder Advisory Committee, we did have representatives of the agricultural community that were involved in the process, and you did see when the Stakeholder Advisory Committee took its support, don't support votes, that this is one of the ones that had a couple do not supports.
Okay. And so going back to your study, did you consider the early morning traffic that happens on the road? Because
yes, we did.
From 2 to 5, I believe, it's like really busy.
Yes, we did. And that was so there was an early morning AM peak, which is that early ag-related peak, and then we did the commuter AM peak as well.
Got it.
So
And
we did address it.
And the completion will help with the traffic?
Pardon?
And the completion of this project will help with the traffic?
Yes, yes. In fact, the congestion that you see, particularly in Santa Maria, that backs up for that westbound trips in the AM, that drove a lot of the improvements that you saw, especially the extension of Hanson, or 166 lane drop past Hanson.
Okay.
That's to benefit that issue. As well, there's, when we looked at the congestion and the travel time variance, we saw that it was very unreliable on an ongoing, it was reliably bad, that's what I'm trying to say, which you don't see very often. So it does indicate a really significant problem for that early morning ag commute.
And during your study on the road, did you see anybody going off-road to bypass the traffic?
Our roadway safety audit, we did recognize that, but we heard that plenty from the public, that folks use the shoulder as a bypass lane, and that's not good. So we recognize that as a major issue.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I will say that the Stakeholder Advisory Committee regarding the Santa Maria River Levee Trail, one of their big concerns was fencing. Was there going to be adequate fencing to protect the ag fields from folks who are using the facility? Cost estimate, as well as our description of the project, is yes, there'll be 2 layers of fencing to keep folks from compromising or getting into the ag fields.
Good. I spoke to the farmers locally there, and they are concerned about people who are using that trail going onto the land. So that's very important, and thank you for doing that.
I agree.
All right, thank you, Director Lee. Director Hartman, then Director Lavanino, and then I'll go to Santa Maria.
I was just curious about your analysis for benefit cost. So the cost takes in the entire set of projects, including the Cal vans and the bus transit?
Correct.
And then describe more how you calculate the benefit. You said what wasn't part of it, but how do you nail that down?
Right. So costing improvements, that's been around for a long time. Engineers are very good at that. Monetizing benefits is really the new aspect of all this, and it's all based on data that's published by Caltrans. It's called societal costs, and there's value to time. So that value of time is incorporated into delay reduction, travel time reliability, because it's called buffer time. If you want to reach your destination 95% of the time, but because of the conditions of the facility makes that very variable, and we have 12 months of data to show how variable it is, it's the amount of time people have to leave early to make sure they can get to their destination 95% of the time. That's their time. So it can be monetized. They'd rather be at home with their families than leaving early and maybe arriving work early, but maybe on time. They don't know. So that can all be monetized by the value of time. On-road mobile source emissions, all those criteria, health-based pollutants, have a societal cost associated with them. That's all been developed by EPA and Caltrans. And so we have a whole list of all those monetized costs that we can calculate the measure of effectiveness and monetize that benefit.
And then could you elaborate on the gross regional product, the 12 million value, how that relates or doesn't?
So that is a good question. That is specific to the construction activity. So assuming that all the improvements get constructed, that's going to add jobs to the construction sector. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Director Hartman. Director Lavanino.
Thank you. And well, first I just want to thank SBCAG staff and the members that this is something that's been a long time coming. I mean, we probably should have started this 15, 20 years ago so that we were actually doing work now instead of looking at what we could be doing. But, we've got a lot of priorities in this county, so I understand, but I appreciate where we are right now. So can you just refresh my memory? When does Measure A, when do we finish there?
Measure A expires in 2040.
Okay.
This board has directed to pursue a measure in 2032.
Correct. Okay, great. So what I'm hearing is in that short term, those ones that you've identified, which 2 of them are actually construction and the other 2 are, kind of working around some issues. We're anticipating that we would be able to do those before 2040 with the current Measure A?
There is no Measure A identified for this corridor at this point in time.
So what we're saying is we could identify state funding and federal funding possibly to do these.
It would be
And then
outside
these
funding.
other ones that are in the midterm, that they would be a wish list that we would send to voters, that these are things that we would like to get done. And inside of that, are we or are we not, do you anticipate now talking about widening to 4 lanes? Or is that something outside of that?
It's up to this board.
Okay. Okay. So I'm curious on these, even in the midterm ones, but even in the intersection lighting and the pavement driving, is that 42 million seems pretty low to me, which
it does.
It's only because we deal with so many high numbers here. But Is that actually, have we looked at the right-of-way? Because some of those farms, I mean, I know we're going to be taking, anytime you do any work on the 166, you're talking about impacting prime ag. And I'm just curious if we've done those studies, looked at that.
We did. So for the lighting, a lot of these are low-cost improvement concepts. And so that's the beauty of it. But very astute observation, 42 million in the big scheme of things is not that much. So the lighting in terms of the Cobra heads and the poles, a lot of that can be done within right-of-way, so there wouldn't be any take.
Okay.
The driveway aprons, that's a mix. There probably will be some right-of-way that's not Caltrans to make those effective. We think that's a good public-private type of improvement that folks can rally behind, but we'll see.
Okay.
But I think most of the businesses, the ag, they would welcome that because it's a safety issue for their people, their vehicles, their workers.
And then final question, I guess, is, so in your professional opinion, how do you think these midterm projects would rack and stack against, as far as being able to actually see possibility of funding?
Yeah, it depends on the program itself. One program that we highlight that we feel is probably the strongest is the Trade Quarter Enhancement Program from Caltrans SB1. That is a competitive program. I think we have a very competitive benefit cost. We have safety improvements. We have a lot of a good mix of projects from transit, vans, you name it, driveway aprons, which is very unique. This is the first quarter study that I've been a part of. I've been part of too many, but that driveway aprons was even an improvement. So it's kind of unique. So my fondest aspiration is that we can compete well for the Trade Quarter Enhancement Program. Another good one is HSIP, Highway Safety Improvement Program.
Okay, thank you. By the way, that was former SBCAG member Larry Levin, calling.
I have a correction. There is a project in the current Measure A program. That's the Better Avian 101 project that is funded through the Measure A that we'll be applying for additional funds to implement that project, but it's not on the 166. So
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go to Santa Maria for some comments or questions, and I'm going to come back up here for Director Silva.
Thank you. I know this is about the Bonita School, and I know we've had discussions about this before, and Director Nelson, I can't remember exactly what, but I know that property was deeded only to be used as a school. And so there's just a lot of problems getting into what happens. And I know the school district spoke to us several years ago, and you probably know more about it than I do, but it's really a challenge to have to deal with that. And of course, those students do come from Santa Maria, and they are bused out there. I want to ask about, I really want to confirm the peak hour study again, because you've got Black and Betteravia, you've got Black and Stoll, and you've got Blosser that concern us. But what time was that peak hour study?
So the what we're calling the early AM, I believe, is from 5 to 6, and then the commuter AM is the typical 8 to 9, or 7:30 to 8:30. I'll have to check, and then the traditional PM peak is 4:30 to 5:30.
Okay, because that 5 o'clock it's really important. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, it doesn't really matter because that's not when that is so impacted there. On Blosser and 166, we really need the 2 left turn northbound lanes going north, and I didn't see that there. So that's something that we need. Then coming down Blosser and going west on 166, again, that left turn pocket gets packed. It just gets packed. It is probably bumper to bumper from Main Street all the way up to probably Betteravia. I know past Stoll. So that's really an impact. And so that I know when we went through the roundabout issue and we did the signalized intersection at 166 and Black, that went on for years. And I went to all those meetings with focus groups, Not one person at that time ever spoke in favor of a roundabout. And yet we spent years going through that. And it was like Caltrans was trying to push that on us, and everyone was saying that it doesn't work. So I just think that those kinds of things are important. I'm thinking of the day that we were out on 166 in Black and celebrating the intersection, and I'm sitting there watching, and there's CHP there, and a car runs the red light. And then a little while later, a truck runs the red light. So it is a very, very dangerous road, and during those peak hours, it's 4 lanes and not 2 lanes. So it's something that we, between Guadalupe and Santa Maria, we do care about. There's a lot of accidents out there all the time. And I want to ask you, and Margie, maybe you know this, but I heard on the radio that California has the most unsafe, we're number 1 in the most unsafe roads, and I didn't know what study that was done. Anyway, our Public Works Director is here if he would like to comment on anything. Thank you.
All right. Director Patino, do you have a question for him that you'd like to have answered? Or are you
Do
just
I?
Yes, for your...
No, I just wanted to make those comments.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. And if he'd like to speak during public comment, we'll absolutely give him that opportunity too. Or if any
Okay.
other directors up here or down there will have some questions for him, we'll make sure that's available.
Okay, and I'm sure Director Julian has things to say. Thank you.
I'm sure he is. Director Julian?
Yes, thank you for the update. And one of the things that local residents are looking at CHP. I know that there was a study with about a quarter of the CHP ticketing, and that is a big issue. We still have people, and especially if you're not going to have a 4-lane for decades or ever, we need CHP doing more of the routes out in that area. Trucks are not a problem. Maybe because we're used to that. Trucks slow people down to the 55 miles an hour. So trucks, we have a good relationship with the truckers. And one of the things too, and I know that Director Nelson is on Calvans, but when people from Santa Maria go to San Luis County across the bridge, Santa Maria River Bridge, there's a lot of development, not a lot of development, a lot of grow right after the bridge on the north side of the Santa Maria River. Literally hundreds of cars are there, and we need to, and especially Guadalupe I know that there's a call for more CHP or Calvans. That's really necessary. But what we need to do in terms of Guadalupe is to make. I see very few Calvans vehicles in the city of Guadalupe, and if we're having 15 additional vans, we really need to do our homework and make sure that the local farm workers know that that's. It's there for their use. Also, the increase in road trips from an hour to 30 minutes to and from Santa Maria is really helpful for the community of Guadalupe. And then in the future, we've got another 18 acres of commercial that hopefully that'll be developed to where people don't have to go to Santa Maria for everyday shopping in terms of groceries. And again, most of our people are employed in Santa Maria, so it really makes a difference in making improvements on this Highway 166. So thanks for the report.
All right. Thank you, Director Julian. Director Silva.
Thank you. Just kind of piggybacking off of what Director Hartman mentioned with societal benefit, I just was curious, I don't know if it's the factoid of you saying 1 hour equals 1 day of shelf life. Considering the fact that we have a traffic issue going on right now, I was curious if you could maybe walk through, do we anticipate, while we're looking at a 20-year construction plan or whatever that looks like, exacerbating the traffic issue, and was that analyzed in the cost of the project, or are we, I just don't know how you would mitigate that. Are we possibly as a body, just so that we're aware, are we going to have to expect that there will be delays by the nature of construction taking place, and that could impact the ag transportation going on, and what that has been studied or what that looks like?
Okay. Two questions. The first question is that the existing conditions analysis and the public input predicated our selection of the improvements, but the performance analysis of those improvements was based on future conditions, And so we relied on SBCAG's travel demand model and other resources to know how much traffic was going to grow. So when these improvements were operational, open to the public and the traveling public, that benefit was derived from future demand. So I think that addressed your first question. The second question, can you repeat it? I'm sorry.
It's really just understanding, once these improvements start taking place, do we have an understanding of if we would anticipate delays that will have economic impact? Is there ways that we have gone through with how we're going to mitigate that? I just wasn't sure exactly of being mindful of actions taken. It's not saying we don't need to solve the problem, but there's always that, when you're solving a problem, you know, the treatment can often cause some issues while we're going through that. I'm just curious what that looks like, or if we've done that study.
No, good question. Construction phasing and delays associated with the construction of improvements, that is not incorporated into our study. Like I said before, the good news is that many of these are not significant in terms of disruption to existing traffic, in my opinion. The experience at 166 and Black Road, I don't know what the history when that project was implemented to install a signal, but it would be similar to that, is a good analogy in terms of disruption to traffic. Now, of course, that longer term improvement, that's going to be significant, and construction phasing will be pretty complicated on how we can keep the traffic moving on 166 while that's being constructed, if it ever does. Yeah.
All right, well, Director Perotti.
Thank you, Chair. Going back to Director Patino's question about the schools, what's the issue at the school? Is it traffic getting into the class, into school by parents? Is it kids walking, biking, buses? What's their concern? And I'm assuming you've gone to the school and talked with the parents.
Yeah, so there's a number of issues that go on. So during school let-out, there's the queuing of the buses, and our road safety audit was out there to witness that firsthand, and it's messy. All those buses, they queue up. There's not enough storage for them in terms of the internal circulation where they pick up the kids on campus. And then they're all making a left because they all go to Santa Maria. 100% of the student body, kids, are living in Santa Maria. Strangely, most, if not all, the faculty come down from the north because they live in Napomo and elsewhere, and they use Santa Benita School Road. And so it's kind of a confluence there. So there's no formalized parking really on campus, so there's no stalls, white lines, painting, striping. So we put a lot of thought into that, but that's just a concept. Do you want diagonal parking? Do you want, there's all these different variables, but so that's an issue in terms of just the circulation of the student body. The parents drive their kids too, and so there's just the confluence of the vehicles from the employees to the students, and then that school let-out time with the queuing of the buses.
Okay, I was just curious about what the problem was there.
Yeah, the Stakeholder Advisory Committee advocated really putting in a much more prominent right turn channelization for westbound traffic, and that's mentioned in our report. It's not technically included in the improvement, but I think that's had a lot of merit, so we included it by
thank you for
reference.
that.
Thank you, Director Perotti. And I'd actually like to speak to the school issue just for a moment, something that I've always kind of been tracking as well. The issue is it's 4 miles from the nearest house to the school, just all through this entire traffic area. So there's nobody riding their bikes, there's nobody walking there. And it is a traffic issue. I know you mentioned the pesticide issue. I think that was inappropriate. That site has been tested for the last few years, and they've had a zero detect for pesticides. So I know there's always that concern out there. I think the bigger concern is probably the cooler with the ammonia than there is actually pesticides. There's a great amount of responsible use of pesticides in that area, and in general, but specifically because it's near a school. So they've had a zero detect, so actually no pesticides in the actual region's sensor that's put out by Department of State pesticide regulations is on the fence line of the playground. And again, a zero detect. So just want to make sure that as you talk about that you don't spread any false assumptions or rumors about that. So
No, I totally appreciate that, and that's great news to hear. I would just say fine particulates with no herbicides or pesticides attached to them, it's not a good thing. So
No,
it's still a health-based issue.
Absolutely. But I do think that the big issue for a long time has been the traffic issue. This is the most, early on when I started working for the county, I heard from CHP's officer, they said it's the most unmanned vehicle accidents in the state are all on this. And I go, what do you mean unmanned? Because there's accidents and they show up and there's nobody there. And so they have the cars that are there. So it's definitely a corridor with many, many accidents. Obviously, we've been talking about significantly the traffic issues. My son actually works at a farm at 166 in Black Road. And so, he lives 5 miles away and it's a 30-minute plus drive for him to get there. So I see this and it impacts so many of our residents, especially those who have the least time to share on a commute. So a few things I just wanted to also, did you guys look at Black Road with the flooding that happens there? Did that, you talked about extreme weather events. Black Road floods significantly, multiple feet of water. Did you guys kind of look at that as part of the study?
It was brought to our attention. In terms of the vulnerability to extreme weather events, I think that's a chronic issue.
It is.
But we do identify quite a swath of area that is subject at risk, vulnerable to flooding. But yeah, that did come into play. We did not explicitly try to address the flooding issue that currently happens at that location.
You also went through the truck routes, and I think that got a lot of people's attention. What's the next steps on truck routes in that conversation? Because I think, you presented a lot of different options. I don't know who just makes those decisions, whether that's our board or that's someone else. I think also the city of Santa Maria with the potential of their Amazon center that they're going to have on Stowell, that plays into it. What are all those things that we're looking at? So
Right.
who makes those next decisions on truck routes?
So, well, I'll just say it varies across the state. Typically, I think what's typical, they allow it to organically happen, so it comes from the property owners and the business owners that they request through their local agency or member regional agency to ask Caltrans to formally designate and test it. So most of the state does that, but there are jurisdictions that are more proactive. And I would say this is kind of a proactive step.
Yep.
That, hey, there's no STA routes east-west. That's a huge issue. And everybody that we talk to from the growers and shippers and CHP, it just has never really formally been looked at. And it's an issue because the CHP will not enforce the STA regulations because really the truckers don't have any choice. There's no signage, there's no navigation, so they'll just go where Siri tells them to go. And sometimes they find themselves on roadways that were never designed to accommodate those vehicles. And you can see the damage at intersections from the light poles and all that. They have visible damage from the trucks off tracking and not being able to accommodate that sharp of a turn. But I'll pass it over to Margie.
Well, it sounds like this is a perfect issue for SBCAG to take up at some point, maybe within the North County sub-regional, because we have all the different parties that are going to impact it, so that we can come up with something to advocate to Caltrans to formalize.
Sure. So the steps in the planning process is this is the study, and then we incorporate it into our regional transportation plan. So it could be an action item in our next regional transportation plan to identify a truck route and working with Caltrans. So.
All right.
Okay.
And just one thought I had on the paved driveways, it seems like that's a great public-private partnership opportunity. I think if we gave encroachment permits, many of those landowners would actually install those for us, which would be a huge cost savings, I'd imagine. So, it could be one of those things where the local jurisdictions help them with the permitting. That's our cost and investment, and those farms would put in the paving. I mean, they have construction material, they're able to do those types of things. I know that a lot of this is going to be potentially on their property as well, so I just kind of throw that out there as a concept that I think would be embraced. And then my last, kind of final thought on this is that I think that this is a great start, but I think this needs to be kind of a living document for us because there's other things coming down the line. I don't think Betaravia is a settled idea of what is proposed here. I think this is just a concept, so I think there's going to be greater discussion there. The city of Santa Maria is looking at McCoy interchange, what happens there, and how that impacts everything. And they're also looking at bringing McCoy out to Mahoney. the county at some point is looking at Union Valley Parkway out to Highway 1, and so having additional corridor routes in the future and how those all kind of play into future investments, I think are really important. So I think that this is something we should probably bring back every couple of years and maybe amend the study to the current circumstances and the current planning. If the city of Santa Maria moves forward at the Amazon Center, then this changes a lot of things here. And we're going to have to go refresh that as well. So I just want to kind of throw that out there for all of us, is to think about that this is a start, but we should probably be, refreshing this on a semi-regular basis for the corridor.
Chair Nelson, when you don't speak into the mic, we can't hear you up here. Thank you.
I apologize there, Director Patino. I was trying to hide it from you anyway, so it's all good. All right, so Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
Chair, I'm confirming written public comment was received for this item in advance. The comments were uploaded online and provided to the board, and those comments were received from Guthrie Leonard, Timothy Mahoney, Jeffrey Wheeler. And if there are any members of the public who wish to speak on the Zoom webinar, please use the raise hand feature and I will call upon you. We do have one request to speak in Santa Barbara and 3 up north in Santa Maria. And so our first speaker in Santa Barbara is Barry Remus. If you can please come to the podium.
Good afternoon, Chair Nelson and directors. My name is Barry Remus, and I'm with Move Santa Barbara County. We countywide empower, educate, and advocate for those who walk, bike, and use public transit. So what a perfect opportunity to address the Route 66 multimodal corridor. And we really do want to highlight the fact that multimodal has been emphasized or highlighted in the study numerous times. And while we do realize that this is clearly going to be a large balancing act of numerous priorities, and recognizing the immense benefit that this agricultural corridor provides for everybody, we also want to emphasize as well that it's more than just a truck route, and that we fully support the opportunity here, and it certainly is an opportunity, and also, Chair Nelson, as you mentioned, to be able to treat this as a living plan that obviously will need to be reevaluated and reassessed as the years go on, and some things are going to take a lot longer than others. But while we certainly support the Class 1 multi-purpose path that would be fully separated and protected for active transportation users, bike riders, pedestrians, and also the ever-growing e-bike riding population, that is also a lot of the commuters that would probably be going back and forth between farms as e-bikes become more affordable. But also, and we're also on record supporters of the Santa Maria River Levee Trail, and we understand that there's the balance between that too, but we feel that there are ways to be able to work that arrangement out, to be able to provide protected space for the agricultural owners, while also providing a good alternative route for active transportation users from and to Guadalupe and Santa Maria. But also the agricultural workers and the commuters, the farm workers that depend upon transit. And so that idea of increasing the CalVans opportunities and also increasing the headways for smart transit, all are wonderful ways that through funding availability can be more near-term solutions to be able to address the county's climate action plans, reducing emissions, reducing vehicle miles traveled, and also to be able to provide for so many of the agricultural workers coming out of Guadalupe, to Director Julian's points, to be able to provide that opportunity for them to get there. Safe routes to school is paramount for us, and we appreciate Director Peroti's questions and Mr. Nelson's questions about the school. Any amount of dust mitigation and the particulate matter for the safety and the future health of our children is an excellent idea. The paved driveway aprons as well. And just lastly, also going to point out that for the Guadalupe side, you got to highlight that Caltrans is holding a community meeting next Wednesday, the 21st, to highlight Guadalupe-oriented action projects as well. So I want to bid you all a Happy New Year, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Claire Weinman, followed by Brett Fogoni.
In Santa Maria? Claire, you're up. We can't hear you yet.
What about now?
We can now, please.
Good morning. My name is Claire Weinman. I'm the president of the Grower Shipper Association of Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo counties. We appreciate the opportunity to serve on the advisory committee, and it's always a pleasure to work with the SBCAG team. This is an essential corridor for safe and effective movement of people, equipment, and fresh perishable produce. Agriculture drives employment and businesses that many rely on in North County. We've provided detailed comments throughout the process and would like to highlight a few key points before approval today. First, our number one ask is widening 166 to 4 lanes in a modest, compact design. We are sensitive to the cost and complexity of pursuing a very wide design and would look to a modest and achievable design which would better suit the location and use needs through a design variance. As many of you are already aware, we strongly oppose the Santa Maria River Levee Trail due to the significant food safety and operational concerns with that specific location. As mentioned, the majority of the advisory committee also did not support the trail at that location and asked it to be removed from this package. Many of you are also aware of our concerns about roundabouts in areas frequented by agricultural equipment, and specifically the mix of vehicle types, and would oppose roundabouts at Mahoney Road and Betteravia and 101, and favor signalization for these locations. Finally, we strongly support a variety of east-west travel corridors for trucks. This would provide resiliency and reduce undue pressure on any one pathway. We strongly support maintaining Main Street to 101 and further support additional options for Highway 1 and Seamus, as well as Stoll Road, Union Valley Parkway, and Clark. This would most closely align with the modified alternative 5 and 6 and would like to remain very engaged in this process. We appreciate your attention and leadership to these important details and look forward to continuing to serve our community as these move forward as projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wyman.
And our next speaker is Brett Fulgoni, followed by Maribel Aguilera.
Good morning, Chair Nelson, directors. Brett Fulgoni, Public Works Director for the City of Santa Maria. And first of all, thank you all very much for the work that went into this study. A couple of things I just wanted to comment on. I recall back in November, there was some discussion about, and you did list it in the comments that you took that information in, but I didn't see it analyzed in the options analysis. So Black and Betteravia, Stoll and Black, and then also very importantly the two left-hand turn lanes eastbound 166 on a northbound Blosser. And earlier, Jim, I heard you talking about the AM peak, which I think you nailed, but I wasn't sure about that PM peak. And we see, anecdotally, the peak we think is probably around 3 to 4 p.m. at that location, where you get that left-hand turn movement onto northbound Blosser really stacking up west. So we just want to make sure that gets addressed. Anecdotally, we looked at it through engineering on our team. If we had 4 11-foot lanes through there, which would require a Caltrans design exception, we think we could get 2 left-hand turn lanes onto that northbound Blosser corridor. And so, perhaps a short-term solution could be a design exception through 11-foot lanes, and then as we move toward the medium term, we could widen that back out if needed because of the truck traffic. Although we do have many 11 and 10-foot lanes throughout the city of Santa Maria on truck routes, or unofficial truck routes. Let's see if I have anything else. So yeah, I just want to make sure that those intersections were fully studied that I mentioned, and that we've captured the correct PM peak on that eastbound 166 to Blosser turn movement. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
And our next speaker is Maribel Aguilera.
Chair and members of the board, I'm Maribel Aguilera, Santa Maria City Council. I strongly support the final State Route 166 Comprehensive Corridor Study and urge approval today with a further consideration to include the widening of the 166 to 4 lanes. The people of Santa Maria and Guadalupe deserve a safe, reliable corridor connecting our communities. Every day, Guadalupe residents travel the 166 to reach medical appointments, go shopping, get to work, and access essential services in Santa Maria. And Santa Maria residents depend on this same corridor to reach the coast. Some work in Guadalupe, visit family, and support businesses throughout the region. For too long, our families have navigated a roadway plagued by safety concerns, heavy agricultural traffic, limited visibility, congestion, and inadequate infrastructure at key intersections. We've had far too many serious accidents on this road over the years. This study represents years of thoughtful collaboration between SBCAG, Caltrans, Santa Barbara County, and both cities of Santa Maria and Guadalupe. And I am encouraged by the strong community engagement, nearly 500 survey responses with outreach in both English and Spanish at events such as Mexican Independence Day celebrations to our Parade of Lights. And with a benefit-cost ratio of 2.66, this is clearly a sound investment. The identified improvements, signalization at Seamus Road, enhanced lighting, intersection, safety upgrades, and transit enhancements will provide real safety and operational benefits. However, I do want to address the timing, and I do appreciate the request for 4-lane widening, because that's really shouldn't be for long-term planning, because the need is now. During peak traffic times, it takes 45 minutes to get from Santa Maria to Guadalupe. So I'd really encourage us to look at that and widening the road and looking at the peak times 5 to 6 a.m. and 3 to 4 p.m. As someone who has spent over a decade serving our region's families on the Planning Commission and City Council, I know firsthand how critical this corridor is to our community's well-being and economic vitality. I ask that you include the 4-lane widening now, not as a long-term goal, because the families of Guadalupe and Santa Maria need that today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
There are no further requests to speak.
All right. Any other questions from directors in Santa Maria? Or comments?
Did you have a comment? No, I didn't. Oh, I have a comment. On the comprehensive corridor study, that is part of the river trail. I should say the river trail is part of that comprehensive corridor study.
Director Patino, the trail along the levee is a county project that was included in the study.
Okay, and that was already agreed to and passed, what, 4 years ago or 5 years ago?
I believe it's my understanding that the county agreed to fund certain segment or certain phases. I believe the environmental phase, which is currently ongoing.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions down or comments in Santa Maria?
Yes, there is.
Please.
I've got a comment here. One I've made before, and it's in regards to the trail. I know the county is well aware that they have a Superior Court ruling about introduction of people and pests into environmentally sensitive habitats. And how would you be getting around the Superior Court ruling by obviously introducing people and pets into environmentally sensitive habitats? Agriculture, as it's recognized in the Superior Court ruling. So it seems to me that you're doing kind of the opposite of mandates that you've done in other areas of the county. But buyer beware with a trail, because I can guarantee what's going to happen. You might as well just call it the strawberry picking trail or something like that. But I've advised before that if you want to see what happens when you put trails in these type of areas, come to Lompoc. There's plenty of video that show out what happens there. But just for the record, I'm just very curious how the county in one area can say no to recreation and trails in one area, but in another area they can just turn a blind eye to it, even when the people owning the property around are saying no, and it moves forward.
All right. Thank you, Director Mosby.
Can I answer that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Director Lavanino, please.
So as far as calling it a blind eye, we've studied this thing upside down, backwards, and frontwards. It has had plenty of public comment. The project that there is really no even, we're in the very beginning stages of this. We all understood the reason why it's not done right now is because of the farmers' input, and we realized that we can't do it without a huge investment that would include lighting, fencing, paving, all kinds of engineering to keep people out of those fields.
And
So
staffing?
staffing. If we had turned a blind eye, we would have said, okay, here's a Santa Maria River levee trail and it's open, and all hell would have broke loose. So because of the input of the farmers and our ability to then dial it way down and say, okay, this obviously is an area of concern, I got to be honest, I think it has not been a blind eye. We've gone in with eyes wide open and tried to listen to what the comments were and change what even the proposal is. That's why it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen next Friday. It is a long-term project that is going to take a lot of funding to do it the right way. So the reason why it's going to take a long time is because we have decided to really implement everything that we've heard from the public. So, I think it's easy to throw rocks at this and act like nobody's paying attention to it when the exact opposite is true. Everybody's paying attention to it. We're on top of it, and we're really analyzing it. So I just want the public to understand that this is not just a Wild West free-for-all trail running through ag properties.
All right. I want to kind of bring this back, though. So this is just referenced in the study. And today, all we are doing is receiving and filing the study, right? We're not actually adopting any of these projects, any of these designs. We're just hearing a presentation on what we paid for.
We are asking for the board approval as a study, and then it gets incorporated into the plan as priorities as we move forward. So the board will have discretion on what priorities get incorporated into the regional transportation plan as we move forward. But this is just basic information to inform your future decision-making.
Right, so no actual decisions will be made on projects or designs at this point?
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure. I think it's a good discussion and debate, and it's good to get information out there, and I appreciate both perspectives and having that opportunity to say that. But I do want to get us moving along towards finishing up this item so we can get this meeting finished in a timely manner. So with that, Director Hartman.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right, so not seeing too many other lights up here or any other lights. Again, I could get us back to this item is to receive this study.
The action on the agenda is to approve the final study, the comprehensive corridor study, and to direct staff to file a notice of exemption with the Santa Barbara clerk for CEQA.
So the study is not an environmental document, though. It's
No,
just
it's not. It's
okay.
exempt from environment because it's just a study. You're not making official decisions or priorities. It's information for your future decision-making.
Okay, we're not making any of those decisions today. All right, so I just need a motion to
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion from Hartman and a second from Silva. Further discussion? Supervisor or Director Patino?
Yes. I would really like to go on record saying I do oppose the river trail being in on that study, and I know we've gone through it over and over. I don't think that people realize the impact and the challenges to the growers in our community, and they are extremely important. Ag is the engine that fuels our community, and I didn't like it when it was passed, and I don't like it now. I don't think people realize that even with birds going into fields and contaminating whatever is growing in the fields makes those fields unusable. And I think when you've got people going down the levee on their bicycles and they have their dogs with them, and I realize we have in here is going to do fencing, but somehow we go down the road and things get turned around. And so I would love to see if that could be removed from this study, the approval of this study. Thank you.
Other comments on the motion that we have right now? Okay, I don't see no additional comments on the motion. Madam Clerk, can you please have a roll call vote?
Director Rouse? Aye. Director Perotti? Director Patino?
Aye.
No.
Director Mosby?
No.
Director Lee?
Aye.
Director Lavernino? Aye. Director Julian?
Aye.
Director Hartman?
Aye.
Director Clark? Aye. Director Capps? Aye. Director Brown?
Aye.
Vice Chair Silva?
Aye.
And Chair Nelson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
11-2. Can you mind calling out just the number for the public? Was that what it was?
Yes, it was 11 to 2.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're moving on to our final discussion item, item 5C. Madam Clerk, will you please read that into the record?
Expanded peak hour intercity rail service update, recommended actions, receive presentation, and provide direction to staff regarding the proposal by the Los Angeles, San Diego, San Luis Obispo Rail Corridor Agency, LOSAN, to operate expanded intercity passenger rail service between Ventura and Santa Barbara counties.
Mr. Bonfilio, please.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Board of Directors. For the record, my name is Aaron Bonfilio, Director of Multimodal Programs for SBCAG. And with me today is Jason Jewell from the LOSAN Rail Corridor Agency, the Managing Director, to help with the presentation. So today's presentation, and we'll try to move through it quickly. I don't want to stand between you all and lunch. It's a hard place to be. We'll provide you all with a quick background of this project, where we are with regard to LOSAN's recent board direction, as far as their updated proposal is concerned, because there was some action at the recent LOSAN board that has triggered some new information, and then next steps with regard to timeline. Okay, we'll try again. All right, new clicker. So as the board will recall, in 2018, SBCAG began a service with the Pacific Surfliner, the Rail Corridor Agency, to operate additional train service from the south into Santa Barbara County to address the peak hour morning commute period. This is a long-standing commitment that SBCAG has made to the voters. The lane in a train was part of the 2008 Measure A renewal or push for the current local self-help sales tax measure that's here today. And we've achieved much of the lane and had fits and starts with the train. So as it relates to our ongoing efforts, I'm here to tell you that we have some good news. Over the past 2 years, we've been working very closely both with LOSAN and our partners in Ventura County, but also with the Regional Rail Authority in Southern California, Metrolink, to come up with the solution to help expedite additional train service. Over the years, we had a discussion with this group that effectively was to provide on loan a slot from the LOSAN Rail Corridor Agency that they have track access to with the Union Pacific right away. It's very important. UP is the owner of the tracks for much of our area, as far north as the Bay Area. And in order to operate trains, Union Pacific must provide that access, and we must reimburse them. LOSAN has access, as well as Metrolink, throughout the Southern California area, but effectively, LOSAN was unable to provide the additional train service when we went back to them in 2022 and early 2023. And creatively, they suggested that, you know, who does have train equipment that could operate this service, well, maybe they don't have access, is Metrolink. And so we began on an effort to work with both Metrolink and LOSAN and our partners in Ventura County to establish a set of agreements that would allow for Metrolink to temporarily use LOSAN's track access for a period of time until such time that LOSAN could operate additional Pacific Surfliner services funded by the state and through the additional equipment that they would need in order to operate. We got very far along and earlier this summer approached Union Pacific with approximately 8 months to go before our anticipated start date. Union Pacific was initially receptive to the idea and began to review some of the internal or the initial documents, preliminary schedules and so forth. But the bottom line was that Union Pacific has a process that it must go through, and that LOSAN's agreement with UP specifically identified Amtrak as the operator of record on any of the UP corridor north of Moore Park Station, in addition to Metrolink in Ventura County. In order to utilize LOSAN's agreement, an additional agreement with UP would be required. And while UP was receptive and eager for business, they had to let us know in no uncertain terms that they had other priorities. And in particular, their merger with Norfolk Southern was underway, and there was quite a bit of scrutiny that they had to address, and would be able to review our proposal and our agreement options in the beginning of 2026. As I mentioned, this is an effort that to put this train into service with additional train service since 2008, if not prior to that. I think the first study I read looking at train service in the corridor was done by SCAG in 1998, if not a little bit earlier than that. The final report went before both Santa Barbara and Ventura counties around that time. And at that time, and most recently in 2007, studies were done that showed that LoSan was ultimately the best available operator to operate additional peak hour service because a simple retiming, or what we presume would be a simple retiming, would be the best way to go, as there is already a state-supported service. So we did that in 2018, and unfortunately during the pandemic, due to declining ridership and some changes with availability of train equipment, we were unable to reestablish that service, hence the Metrolink expansion option. As I mentioned, UP responded to LoSan this summer and a little bit after our last presentation, which was in August of 2025 to the board, that they would be able to begin on that agreement in 2026. Unfortunately, Union Pacific had indicated to both LoSan and Metrolink that there'd be some additional requirements or potentially new requirements on LoSan's agreement with them, which opens up a new can of worms where LoSan previously already has access to that service. In November of 2025, LoSan's board took action to prioritize their Amtrak Pacific Surfliner service as the temporary period of time which we had envisioned Metrolink to operate was quickly coming onto the horizon. So effectively, LoSan had seen some increase in their train capacity, their train equipment capacity. They had ability to operate additional services. We're looking towards expansion in the near term, and Metrolink's proposal, which was still yet to be determined and finalized with Union Pacific, caused for two conflicting efforts. And where we are today is to bring you that update on how LoSan's board saw fit to work with SBCAG in Ventura County to still achieve that expansion, but to do so with an alternative proposal. And so here with me today, I mentioned Jason Jewell. He's going to bring you some additional information regarding the latest LoSan board activity, as well as briefly describe some of the proposal. It's down to click forward. Great.
Get set up here real quick. Great. Thank you, Aaron, and good morning, Chair Nelson and members of the board. As Aaron mentioned, my name is Jason Jewell. I'm the Managing Director of the LoSan Rail Corridor Agency. And I wanted to mention that I am a UCSB graduate and started my career in government service many moons ago with the County of Santa Barbara right here in this building. And I don't want to age myself, but that was back when Congressman Salud Carbajal worked for 1st District Supervisor Naomi Schwartz. And the reason why I mention this is because I used to take the Amtrak Pacific Surfliner train to and from Santa Barbara back to my home in Ventura County. And I also used to drive the 101 many times to get to and from home. So I recognize the importance of having multiple transportation options for the region. And I'm here today representing the LoSan Rail Corridor Agency, of course. And we also recognize the importance of alternative transportation options, and specifically intercity rail options as a transportation focal point of ours. And I wanted to just take a few minutes to give you a little bit of background on the LoSan Rail Corridor Agency. We are a joint powers authority with 9-member agencies comprised of regional transportation and planning agencies, as well as rail owners and operators spanning 6 counties from San Diego all the way up to San Luis Obispo. And SB 1225 is really the legislation that paved the way for the LoSan agency to manage the Amtrak Pacific Surfliner intercity rail service, which we have been doing successfully since 2015. Now, we have an 11-member board, and which I'd like to recognize and thank Director Perotti for her representation and support on our board, as well as alternate Director Lee. And to touch upon the intercity rail corridor and the service itself real quickly, the Amtrak Pacific Surfliner service spans the entire length of the LoSan corridor, which is 351 miles long. We currently stop at 29 stations. And it is the nation's second busiest intercity rail corridor in terms of ridership outside of the Northeast corridor. The corridor itself is very unique. It has 7 right-of-way or track owners, 2 freight operators, UP and BNSF, as well as 2 commuter regional rail services. Addition to that, the U.S. Department of Defense has identified it as part of the Strategic Rail Corridor Network for its access to the Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton down in San Diego, as well as the Port of San Diego. So I wanted to dive a little deeper into the effort that Aaron had been talking about that we have before you today as we have been working to expand intercity rail service. And I wanted to start off by thanking both the SBCAG team as well as the VCTC teams for their coordination and support through this effort. But most of all, their patience. As Aaron has mentioned, this has been a long time coming. This started off as a request several years ago from SBCAG and VCTC to the LoSAN agency to support restoring peak period service to the regions. And at that time, we did not have the equipment resources available or the funding available to run the service. However, it has always been the intent and included in the plans of the LoSAN agency to implement expanded service to Goleta as well as San Luis Obispo, which is included in our annual business plans for fiscal year 26-27 and consistent with state rail plan goals. So as Aaron mentioned, together we explored the possibility of subcontracting the service to Metrolink and allowing them to temporarily utilize the LoSAN agency's track access rights that we currently have with Union Pacific. We have this access agreement directly with Union Pacific, which currently allows us to run the Amtrak Pacific Surfliner service. So the LoSAN, SBCAG, VCTC, and Metrolink teams work together on this path when really 2 major milestone or events happened that created the opportunity that we currently have before us. And these events do tie into the LoSAN board direction to prioritize the intercity rail service expansion that I will get into. The first is really in the July timeframe. The LoSAN agency, as Aaron had mentioned, had learned that UP would require a completely new operating agreement between the LoSAN agency and UP to identify Metrolink as an alternative operator. This requirement became necessary for Union Pacific because Metrolink transitioned from contracting directly their operations with Amtrak over to Alstom. UP also communicated, as Aaron had mentioned, that given their resources being fully dedicated to their work on their national merger, that the soonest they could provide a draft agreement for us to review would be Q1 of 2026. And of course, once received that draft agreement, we would need to, that agreement would need to be reviewed and negotiated, which really made the timing of the Metrolink subcontract really time uncertain. So the second major event was really the clarity around equipment availability. Equipment availability has been one of the primary constraints for the LoSAN agency to be able to implement additional service north of Los Angeles. But in late September, we received a pre-award authority letter from the Federal Railroad Administration committing to $27 million in a restoration and enhancement grant award to the LoSAN agency to support intercity rail service restoration. And I'm proud to say that this is the first federal grant award to the LoSAN agency, and it supports the full restoration of pre-COVID service levels by restoring the 11th, 12th, and 13th round trips between LA and San Diego. We were running 13 round trips pre-COVID, and I'm pleased to share that we have already implemented the 11th and 12th round trips, and just announced this week our plans for the implementation of the 13th round trip between LA and San Diego starting January 26. So to support this service restoration, Caltrans and the 3 California JPAs agreed on a redeployment plan to be able to redeploy equipment from the Northern California fleet down to the LoSAN agency to be ready for service restoration. This equipment that is needed for our service restoration for the 13th round trip will also provide sufficient capacity to allow for service expansion in the north. So with these developments, back in November, the LoSAN Agency Board directed staff to prioritize efforts to pursue the Pacific Surfliner service expansion, including the 6th round trip to Goleta and the 3rd round trip to San Luis Obispo as the pathway to provide additional service. So I know Aaron will dive into a little bit more of the details on the next slide as far as the expanded service pilot proposal itself. However, I did want to mention that we do view this as a great opportunity to advance state rail plan goals, maximize the investment the state has made in the UP-owned territory, and provide not only greater regional benefits, regional rail benefits by providing peak period service to Ventura and Santa Barbara, but also expanding service along the entire corridor with a midday departure southbound train from San Luis Obispo just after the 12 p.m. slot. This will also provide additional rail service options for the World Cup coming up very soon. And so we're proposing a 12-month pilot utilizing temporary funding from both VCTC and SBCAG, as well as a portion of LoSAN agency's estimated operational budget savings to fund this pilot. The LoSAN agency intends to continue to include the proposed service in our annual business plan and funding request to the state. However, given the state's outlook on the next budget proposal, we will also be working with stakeholders to identify and pursue any federal funding sources or any other funding sources that may be able to sustain the service after the 12-month period. So we're going to be taking the lead on doing that to make sure that we can identify funding to be able to sustain this service beyond the 12 months. So now I will hand it back over to Aaron to provide a little bit more details on the Amtrak Pacific Surfliner service proposal itself, as well as it relates to Metrolink's proposal.
Jason? All right. So much of the proposal by LoSAN is actually quite like what we've seen from Metrolink already. And in fact, the timetable northbound is nearly identical to what was previously presented to the board. And we'll show that in just a moment. So specifically, the train will travel north from LA Union Station through the area of Ventura County and into Santa Barbara County, getting to Goleta at approximately the same time. From there, it'll continue north into San Luis Obispo, and as Jason mentioned, will return south, providing a corridor-wide train. There are cost savings associated with this proposal that were not previously available under the Metrolink, and that is specifically because we're able to leverage LoSAN's buying power and ability to work with Amtrak, but also that their R&E grant, this federal grant that they received, we're able to leverage that with the advent of the additional train equipment. So there's some significant cost savings that are coming, not to mention the increase in passenger fare revenue that's anticipated for, in particular, that southbound train that is a bit more productive as it'll head from all the way from San Luis Obispo to San Diego. So there's additional fare revenues or operating revenues that'll be borne as a result of this additional service. And then lastly, as a buyer of services from Metrolink, separate from their existing JPA, both VCTC and SBCAG would have to wholly fund their entire cost of the project, which would include their self-insured retention policy, which was a significant cost associated with the service. Approximately $5 million self-insured retention pool fund would be made available if in fact Metrolink were to proceed forward. So as I mentioned, the Union Pacific agreement already exists with LoSAN, so there's some expedited scheduling that's anticipated too as a result. With regard to the schedule, these are the two trips that would be added, highlighted in yellow. You'll notice the time into Goleta is close to, if not the same, as what was previously presented. There have been some minor time adjustments by the host railroad in particular, which would have been true whether or not it was Metrolink operating on the corridor or LoSAN. These are the exact same trip times that are feasible given the existing slot. The southbound trip, which, as Jason mentioned, will begin just after noon in San Luis Obispo, will travel the whole corridor and through Union Station at approximately 5:50 p.m. and further south. So, what are some of the next steps? As Jason mentioned, the agreement, or rather the proposal is before SBCAG and VCTC right now. We're in negotiations. The final draft proposal we hope to bring back to the board in February. There is the expectation that the state's approval process will be completed by then. We hope that that will be positive, but ultimately this is a state-supported service, and so they have to sign off on any expansion. So there is that waiting period while we're looking forward to the state's review of this, where before we come back to you in February, we anticipate getting that green light. Following the board approvals, we'll begin on the concerted marketing efforts between Ventura County and Santa Barbara County. Largely speaking, Ventura will work with its residents and constituencies in the south, and we'll work with the employers and the large organizations here in the north to make sure that word is out and that all of the available riders know of the service and are ready to use it. We also have some additional grant funds that were awarded to SBCAG previously by the state that were made available specifically to assist with the ticket pricing with regard to Amtrak Pacific Surfliner, which will go into effect as well and will be helpful in buying down the fares and making costs affordable to the riders. So I mentioned the timeline ahead, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, questions from directors. I see Director Capps, and then I'll come to Director Hartman.
Sorry about that. We're a little cozy down here in Goleta. Well, thank you for this, and I just applaud the Plan B. And although I know our high hopes have been dashed, it's not for lack of all of the work that this agency went into. You did everything. You lined up the funds, the operator, and it's really the stumbling block that I understand has been in place for a long time. So before I ask about that, and Mr. Jewell, thanks for being here. Welcome back to the county. I just kind of want to get my head around a little bit with Union Pacific. They just basically said we're too busy with our merger to focus on this. Is that the understanding?
I will have to defer to Managing Director Jewell with regard to the specific response from Union Pacific, but that's our understanding, is that they would be able to begin working on the agreement.
Yeah.
Mind you, just starting off on that process at about this time, or sometime between now and the end of the first quarter.
And so because they own the tracks, they essentially control the timeline of when this would have gone forward. Okay.
That's
correct. So again, I'm just trying to get some clarity. But because there's already agreement with LoSAN, it can be expanded without having to go through all of that process with them.
That's my understanding. For that, I'll defer to Jason on the exact number of trips. And
I just want to, the nature of my question is just to say, like, are we on a good path here? It sounds like with the tone of your voice is very optimistic, but again, we had a lot of optimism here for the other plan.
Yeah, through the chair, Director Capps. Yes, we do have, as I mentioned, our direct access agreement with UP. It provides us 2 additional train slots on the north end of the corridor that we have access to. So this would utilize one of those train slots moving forward. We do have plans long-term, consistent with our state rail plan long-term goals, to fulfill that second slot and provide even additional service beyond the 6th round trip to Goleta and 3rd round trip to San Luis Obispo. But to directly answer your question, yes, UP has confirmed that under our current agreement with them, there's no other additional amendments or anything necessary. We have the rights to utilize those slots and to utilize them as soon as we want to.
Okay, so no more additional funding commitments are needed. Again, I just, the nature of my questions is that, we've all been dealing with the 101, all of the implications, we don't need to go through them, but from a commuter perspective, all the impacts that has on people's lives and also our climate. And Union Pacific has been such an incredible roadblock, and now here we are with all this excitement about this MetroLink plan and all the work. I just want to hear what potential challenges lay ahead, but so far you haven't outlined any serious ones that this board needs to be concerned about at this point.
Right. The only other potential challenge, as I alluded to, is future funding.
Okay.
This is being proposed between the 3 stakeholders as a 12-month pilot, really to not only understand the demand and the trends and look at how the train performs, but also because this, as Aaron had mentioned, our intercity rail service has historically been a state-funded program. Yeah. The state has signaled that the state budget as a whole, but particularly the intercity rail budget moving forward, they have concerns about. So we will continue to work with them through our annual budget requests that we do through our annual business plan submittal with them, as well as I mentioned, look for other funding opportunities that can help sustain not only this pilot program moving on into the future, but also our intercity rail program. So the funding in the future is always a concern of ours when we hear about the state budget outlook, and that's something that we do work with the state on an annual basis. So I'm sure you're all aware of the governor's address. The governor's address and some of the state budget concerns that are lying ahead. So like I mentioned, we will continue to work with the state on that funding and do everything we can to ensure not only that our intercity rail services, our baseline services can be funded, but also that this 12-month pilot program can be sustained as well.
Thank you. Again, I just applaud the tenacity and trying to look for another plan when the first one that we all voted for and had a lot of enthusiasm didn't pan out. And I expressed just my frustration towards Union Pacific for, again, just being such a block on something that all of us wanted to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Capps. Director Hartman.
I'm just trying to be clear in my own mind about the number of trips. I think you said that 11 and 12 pre-COVID have been restored and 13 is about to come. I heard advertisements on the radio today about expanded service. And so what you're talking about is additional. Could you lay that out for me?
Sure, definitely. So, yeah, so we have restored our 11th and 12th round trips between Los Angeles and San Diego. As I mentioned, pre-COVID, we had 13 round trips between LA and San Diego. So we restored 12 of those, just about to be 13 later this month. So north of LA, we have historically ran 5 round trips to Goleta and 2 to San Luis Obispo. So this expansion would essentially expand to 6 round trips to Goleta and 3 round trips to San Luis Obispo.
So the advertisement on the radio today was San Diego too slow, is what they said.
So to clarify, yes, that 3rd round trip to San Luis Obispo would actually span the entire corridor. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Director Brown.
I'd like to go, you had mentioned the $27 million grant for equipment. Is that for new rolling stock or is that rehabilitation of existing stock? And where's that stock coming from?
Yeah, and to clarify, the $27 million grant award of the federal FRA Restoration and Enhancement Grant Award, it's actually specifically for operations. So unfortunately, not for capital, only for operations, and specifically only to restore our pre-COVID service levels. So it cannot be used for any type of expansion beyond that baseline pre-COVID service levels, which is our 13 round trips. So that's specifically what they approved the award for.
All right, thank you, Director Brown. I've got a quick question here. I'll take chair prerogative to ask. So the funding that's coming from SBCAG is funding that's part of the South County region? I just want to make sure I clarify that.
Yes, that's correct. It's through the South Coast program, the interregional or passenger rail program.
All right, so there's not any North County funds that are going towards this project?
Nope, the South County funds will run the train north to San Luis Obispo on the South County.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Director Silva.
I think I just so I can further understand the timeline because there's a lot going on there. So just so I understand, so that we can explain it, because I know we were all very excited when we voted last year to bring Metrolink to it. So we approved Metrolink. We wanted to enter into that agreement. We knew there were some risks involved because there was mergers and corporate things taking place and all that. In July, we become aware that it might be more complex. There might be new agreements needed to be done. And then I'm just trying to understand that from July on, was it that we were trying to figure out how to make Metrolink work, or were we operating under trying to find the most easy solution and looking for alternatives? I'm just trying to know what the timeline was for the pivot. And for the sake of clarity, it's just I want to make sure we're making the decision to support the project that is best for the commuting experience and the customer, and not the most convenient one. I just was curious if you could elaborate the timeline of how this all fell into place, because I know it took a long time to get Metrolink going, and is this just path of least resistance, or is this the ideal option that we can provide?
So to the first question, the response from Union Pacific in the summer was simply that we would need a new agreement. Later in the fall, they let us know that that timeline would be to begin working on it sometime this quarter. So we knew at about mid-October that a pivot may be necessary. LoSAN, to its credit, went to the board, asked for authorization to prepare an alternative proposal and work with the stakeholders, SBCAG and VCTC, on a potential alternative. Later that year, in November, they got the direction to proceed with that proposal and prioritize it over other options that might be coming. With regard to the convenience factor, I mean, ultimately Union Pacific is the track owner, and so there is a lead time concern no matter what we do when it comes to working with the host railroads. But specifically, the agreement previously with Metrolink was that we would have them prepare a startup plan working with LoSAN and the host railroads. That was simply just a plan to prepare operations, and that LoSAN, through its work with Metrolink, would come up with a subcontractor or operations and maintenance program. That was still going to be Pacific Surfliner service, just subcontracted with Metrolink. So while it was a Metrolink train, the tickets were going to be through Amtrak. The schedule was going to be within the Amtrak schedule of service, and the passenger, for all intents and purposes, will be getting on another Pacific Surfliner train as it relates to the northbound commute. So from a rider mystique standpoint, helping to explain this to the riders, it's actually a bit simpler when you're talking about having one type of train or one railroad operator on the corridor. Add to that the cost is considerably lower. We anticipate approximately 30 to 50% less costly to SBCAG and VCTC. It's not only more convenient both to the rider, but potentially more efficient from an SBCAG standpoint to be able to proceed forward should this pilot continue.
And then my only other question is, maybe it's because when we looked at the Metrolink agreement back in the day with the afternoon one, I believe it was we were leaving Goleta, I had the notes here, so we would have left Goleta around 10:35 and gotten to Union Station about 2:30. And now we have the new plan of, oh, I'm sorry, we left 10:35 and you would have gone to Union Station at 1:30. And the new afternoon plan is we leave Goleta at 2:33 and we get to Union Station at 5:50 p.m. The morning route, it's only about 8 minutes, inconsequential really when you think about that. But I guess it feels like this new plan, I don't know any commuter who's like, boy, I've been wanting to get to Union Station at 5:50 p.m. And so I just was trying to understand, when we say that this is a more beneficial route to get from San Luis Obispo to that, I don't understand what's the market question for me. I'm confused by the market decision of who's the customer who needs to get out of Goleta at 2:30, because it doesn't match with our early train route. You're not a worker who's coming into Goleta at 8 o'clock, likely needing to leave at 2:30. So I just wasn't sure, again, what's the anticipated benefit, or who's the target market we're trying to capture here?
Certainly. So as the board may recall, in 2008, the target market, and has always been the case, to try and alleviate the congestion headed northbound during peak hour, as well as the southbound during the peak hour on the South Coast. So that would be in the afternoon going southbound. And in fact, this additional train from San Luis Obispo will operate through the Santa Barbara area in that afternoon period. So it does add some capacity in the afternoons as well, which we don't presently have. The 10 and 30 a.m. southbound trip under the Metrolink proposal was simply to get that train back into revenue service in the Metrolink service area.
Okay, so that original one was not the idea of having the original plan was not about the benefit being getting someone down from mid-morning to LA and then back. It's really, we were just trying to get the train back down there. And this proposal is just saying, if we need afternoon traffic, the idea is that there might be people who need to get down to LA in that 2:30 to 5 o'clock benefit. So we weren't trying to do a round trip. This is just send it back down and call it a day.
Precisely, and in fact, to trying to get people to Ventura County specifically in the afternoon.
At about 3:30, 4 o'clock.
But between the hours of, and I can tell you that there's a peak hour, much like with the ag community, that actually precedes what is the typical peak hour in the South Coast. So if you look on the roads at any given afternoon from between 2:30 and say 4, there's quite a few cars on the road headed south. So this is an additional trip that should provide benefit there as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Silva. Any other questions? Any questions down in Santa Maria for the presenters?
Yes, sir. This is Julian, Director Julian. on the schematic in terms of time and the expanded route to San Luis Obispo, it mentions from Goleta to SLO. What about Guadalupe?
The train will be stopping at all the stations, including the Lompoc station as well as Guadalupe, yes.
Okay, good. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Director Julian. Anything else down there or up there? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
If there are any members of the public on the Zoom webinar who wish to speak, would you please use the raise hand feature and I will call upon you. There are no paper requests to speak forms that were received. However, we did receive one public comment for this item in advance, and the comment was uploaded online and provided to the board, and that comment was received from Claudia Sho. And there are no attendees on the line who wish to speak.
All right, back to the board. This is to receive the presentation and provide direction to staff. Director Kern, what kind of direction are you looking for from us?
I'm hoping that you're supportive of this new direction and that you direct us to bring an operating agreement back to the board, hopefully in February.
Okay, so I'm going to ask for a motion to receive the presentation and request staff to bring back an operating agreement in February.
I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
Okay, so motion from Perotti and a second from Hartman.
Can I also make a
And-
comment real quick?
Yeah, and absolutely. And so any further comment on the motion? Director Perotti.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge all the work that was put into this by the SBCAG board, CTCT. They're working on the agreement with them, and how excited we were that we thought it would work out in October. And I know that there was excitement from the community as well, thinking that it was coming back. So it was a great pivot, as you put it, and found an alternative way of around this. I think situations changed, and I look forward to having this happen sooner than later, as soon as we can, because we have a train station in Goleta now almost ready to go, so we want those trains rolling through. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Perotti. Any other comments on the motion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Director Rouse?
Aye.
Director Perotti?
Aye.
Director Patino?
Aye.
Director Mosby?
Aye.
Director Lee?
Aye.
Director Lavanino? Aye. Director Julian?
Aye.
Director Hartman?
Aye.
Director Clark?
Aye.
Director Capps?
Aye.
Director Brown?
Aye.
Vice Chair Silva?
Aye.
And Chair Nelson.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, let's keep moving this thing along. Now we'll move to the Caltrans Director Report from Veronica Lazama, Caltrans Branch Chief. Oh, sorry, did I skip you? Executive Director.
Just real quick.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's all good. It's one item I would like to announce. I would like to introduce our newest employee, Naomi Compton. She joined the agency as an account technician with experience in the public sector finance, and she's back here in the back corner. She will help us with finance, procurement, and administrative support. She's originally from the Houston area and holds a master's degree in finance and previously worked for the University of Houston in supporting their accounts payable, accounting, and payroll and tax information. She said she was drawn to SBCAG by its focus on public service and the opportunity to support projects that improve communities. So please join me in welcoming Naomi to the team. So thank you. And that concludes my report.
Welcome, Naomi. As long as you're not an Astros fan. Okay, moving along to Caltrans.
Now, directors and Chair Nelson, again, Veronica Lazama on behalf of District Director Scott Eads. I have a couple of announcements this afternoon. First, starting with some exciting news to start off the new year, really right hot off the press. Happy to announce that Highway 1 through Big Sur has reopened. Actually, it opened yesterday. That is about 3 months ahead of schedule. We wanted to extend an appreciation to local business owners, residents, visitors, as well as those other agencies who were responsible and involved in the success of that reopening. Second, Caltrans will host an important public meeting next week on January 21st from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the Guadalupe City Hall. This meeting is in relation to the Guadalupe area projects. My team and I walked through the city of Guadalupe last week and provided some information to the public. So it was nice to hear how excited the community is about these future investments in the area. And that concludes my report. Happy to take any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Lizama from Caltrans? Or for Director Kern, based on the Executive Director's report? Anything in Santa Maria for either party?
Nothing here.
Okay, great, thank you. So we'll go ahead and move on to committee meetings. First one up is myself and Calvans. Calvans is plugging along. Looks like we're gonna have some leadership changes on our Executive Director there who just actually resigned yesterday. So we've got some changes ahead of us, but we're confident that we're putting pieces in place to move the organization forward. Many people know that there's a Prop 4 allocation to Calvans, and that's going to be an important part of moving Calvans into the future. And so we're excited about those opportunities as well, expanding service, whether it's on the 166 or anywhere else throughout the state of California. We are navigating some of the changes in the landscape around field work and farm labor, and most of our users are actually farm labor contractors and H-2A workers throughout the state of California, and so those changing programs are going to impact Calvans over the next couple of years. So we're trying to be attentive and look over those things as they proceed through. So that's my report on Calvans. As far as LoSan, Director Lee, I think you had your report?
Nothing to report.
Okay. And now 1-minute reports. Any brief announcements from any of my colleagues? Not seeing you up down here in Santa Barbara. Any announcements in the Santa Maria Board Hearing Room?
None here. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Patino. Okay, we'll go ahead and adjourn today's meeting. The next meeting will be on February 19th, 2026 in Santa Maria. Thank you.